calling this meeting. Board Secretary, please call the roll.
Trustee Lee Reader,
Present.
Baptist,
Here.
Gilbert,
Here.
Baines,
Here.
Mirandis,
Here.
Perez,
Present.
Smith.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, on to the approval of the agenda. Any comments? Okay, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? You guys have it. Agenda's approved. Okay, Trustee Perez, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Tom?
See, no comment. Okay. Any conflict of interest?
I'll be recusing myself from the discussion of item 6.2.
Okay. On to presentations.
No scheduled presentations today.
Okay. On to public comment.
No public comment received on non-agendized items before the meeting. So if there's anyone from the public who would like to speak on a non-agendized item, they may do so now. That's not now. That's not now. That's
Not
6-1.
On to
Put the ice up there.
General Manager's report, another busy month. I did want to report on a couple things. We did participate in 2 outreach events this month. They were very well received, and for the board members that attended, thank you for your presence. And I want to thank Jolene specifically for organizing those events, and with everything else going on with some admin help and covering things. She's had a really busy month, and to put those in as well and to pull them off. So thank you, Jolene, for organizing that and attending those. And Gabe and I, the last one, we were at the NASMA conference in Colorado Springs, which is a really great conference to meet with people from FEMA and across the nation for flood management agencies. It can get technical, but we talk about flood insurance and things going on a nationwide level. And so it's really good to get that perspective from other managers and technical staff for the conference. So, and our legal counsel, Scott Shapiro, was there as well, representing a number of agencies. So anyway, a really good conference. I look forward to it every year. And I'm glad that we joined last year. And if you recall, they're the ones that awarded Public Outreach Award last year up in Seattle for our Foreign Thomas program. So with that, I'll take any questions on the General Manager's report. At the end of the meeting, I want to talk about schedule a little bit for our December board meeting and see what works. And we'll do that at the end. So any questions on the GM report?
How long is that conference?
It's Sunday through Wednesday morning. Yeah. So 3 days, 3.5, 2.5.
2 full days of
Yeah.
conference.
And then
Well, I would say the High Water Jamboree had a lovely turnout, and I would say the vibe around our station was very positive. The kids were excited to run it, spin the wheel, and learn a little bit more about flood control. So I want to say thank you, Jolene, and Gabe, your team was amazing, and they were so great with the kids. It was so cute. Anyways, I wanted to say thank you for spending the weekend out there. I mean, that's how we connect with our community, start by educating them. And so that the next generation, literally you guys were reaching out to the next generation of Natomas residents. And so thank you so much.
I'll just tag on to that. Ellen pointed out to me the difference in activity at our booth versus Lower American River Flood. Lower American River Flood, has a large responsibility also, but no kid stuff. I hadn't realized that. So the importance of kid stuff drags the parent there. So while the parent is bored with the child doing something, they ask a question and they learn something. So whatever we're doing to get the kids in there, I would certainly like us to keep that up because that's a great draw. And of course, You wouldn't let me do any hot laps in the dump truck, but the kids love that too, having their picture taken. So I was very proud of our presentation.
Well, Tom, I appreciate your insight into human behavioral psychology. So that is appreciated. Now we know.
At least I was listening, but I just wanted to reinforce that as how positive that works.
Yep.
So we just start printing stuff in coloring books, right?
We have some activity books, yeah.
Kevin, how long have you been learning stuff?
5.5 years now.
So, and one of the things that was going on is the last approximately 5 years, is our public profile has risen significantly by design, you know, and Kevin's is, you know, shepherded all that. But so it's, you know, 218 election is a good reflection of that, so.
Okay. On to the operations manager's report.
Yeah, just one item I'd like to add. We did complete the RFP process for the EV charging stations for the courtyard. So we are drafting up a contract currently. So we should have the chargers installed in the next few months, which is a pretty good move. We have 2 election vehicles coming in within the next 3 months. So we're moving towards the right direction on the EV front. So exciting.
Pickups.
Yeah, 2 Ford Lightnings.
I heard they're giving them away.
I wish. The price is not,
Ford's having some trouble.
the
so
price is not reflecting.
They are.
Oh, big.
So, yeah.
Are we prepared for flood season? Or-
Yes, yeah, this past month, there's a bunch of pumping plant maintenance, so they're preparing all the pump stations. We're in really good shape.
And what's kind of the general like weather forecast? I
I've
mean,
heard
I'm
it's
not
gonna-
talking the next week, but just.
Long term is dry.
It is.
So
Oh,
we'll just have to wait and see, but we're prepared. Yeah, we're in good shape.
We're right now a predicted dry cycle like
Yeah.
this winter,
Yeah.
like really.
That's coming from DWR was what I've heard, yeah.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed.
Okay. On to the district council's report.
Good morning and short report this morning. We've been helping with prep up to your election that wasn't, so we did not have enough candidates. And so we've been supporting that and will support on the vacancy from the top.
Okay, on to the consent calendar. Can I get a motion?
Move approval of consent.
Have a move, have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Consent calendars approved. On to item 6.1.
Yeah, thank you. Item 6.1, before I get to that, I did want to mention on the investment report from the consent calendar, just for information, it could have been a general manager's report, but we did receive funds withdrawal from the Sac County Treasurer Pool. And if you recall, when we set up our California class account and the River City Bank money market account, the instructions from the board were to any deposits or any withdrawals that we made or sweeps we made from the city pool or county pool that we distribute them evenly between California class and River City money market. California class over the last month dipped a little bit below on their interest earnings in comparison to River City's guaranteed money market account rate that we have for 12 months. And so Jolene and I made the decision to leave it in the money market account. The last deposit, I think, was like 2.5.
Yeah.
About $2.5 million. So we left it in the higher yield, which is consistent with the finance policy and our 3 objectives there about security, liquidity, and yield. And so if California class comes back up to above the money market account, we'll move those funds over into California class. But the security is the same, the liquidity is the same, the yield's higher. So we felt it was important. I updated the executive committee about that decision last month. So if you see something different in those accounts, that's why. And so we're actively managing our investment accounts now. And so as a result of the finance policy and the investment policy that the board approved. So just wanted to have the full board know that we're managing it actively. So anyway, on to item 6.1. We do have a trustee vacancy as we discussed last month, and with the board's general direction to staff, we calendared this item So if you recall from last month, we had 4 trustee seats subject to election for the general election by the nomination deadline. We'd only received 3. We've provided those 3, all incumbents, to the county. The county confirmed earlier last week that the appointment of those 3 trustees was going to be on the November 5th county supervisors meeting. I didn't attend the meeting in person because they didn't ask me to. I went to look and pull down the agenda and look at the action summary, but I think with the county and the election, it was stalling out, so I couldn't download, but I'll confirm today because I need to contact based on the decision on 6.1, just to verify that that occurred, but it was supposed to be calendared. So I'll confirm that and let Tom, Nick, or Tom know that they're secure and everything's done, and then we'll do the oath of office sometime in December. As far as this agenda item, as we discussed, we did do a social post about the appointment in conjunction with our agenda noticing. And so at the last month's meeting, you guys wanted to come back and make a decision. Decided not to do interviews at last month's meeting. And so if there's anyone interested, they can make public comment and make themselves known today to the board. And then I'll turn it over to you to make the rest of the discussion here. And then whatever you decide, keep in mind that the county is not obligated, but we can direct them to make a recommendation. So that's the action you'll be taking today if you want.
So, we invite anybody that's interested to step to the podium.
Yeah, if you want to take that now, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we've done a presentation. Any more discussion?
Okay.
Any
No.
comments?
No, looks like we have somebody in the public that would like to speak.
Yeah, so, yeah, would come over to the podium. And just hit the little red mic button at the bottom of that. There you go.
Morning, my name is Eva Hill, and I've known Tom Gilbert since May of 1988 when he hired me to work in his accounting firm. And, we have remained colleagues and friends for many years, and he suggested to me that I should consider evaluating whether RD 1000 was a good place to spend some of my expertise and volunteer time. And I've given it some thought, and I would be interested in serving as trustee. But let me tell you just a little bit about myself, if you don't mind. So I'm a CPA by trade, mentored by Tom for a few years, and then I moved on. I ran a portfolio of commercial office and hotels and senior living centers. We, with partners, developed all of the projects across the street from the Galleria Mall, from Highway 65 down to BJ's. We basically developed about 6 million square feet over the 25 years that I worked at that company. I left that company about 8 years ago to start my own commercial real estate and development, because I thought at some point I'd like to actually do some projects for myself. So I've been working on a hotel project downtown, which has not started yet, but hopefully will in the next year. And in the meantime, I have served on the Railroad Museum Foundation Board for several years. Once again, Tom and I have worked together loosely, professionally, and in charity work for a while. And I also have experience with agriculture. I grew up on an almond in an almond orchard. I understand pumps and flooding, and and my dad has 300 acres of almonds up in Chico, and so I think I can understand things from the farmer's point of view, from the developer's point of view, and the other thing is I live right on the other side of the levee, so from a very interested person point of view, I think flood control and what the RD 1000 does is very important. So I'd be willing to serve if this is something that the rest of the trustees would like. And I'll take any questions.
Just one question from staff, just to confirm, you are a resident and property owner within Party 1000.
Yes, I live right on the other side of Libby.
Perfect, just so,
Yes.
because that's a stipulation or requirement, so if the board wanted to consider Ava for a recommendation to the county, we would need to confirm that, as well as receive some other intake, Form 700, things like that. So thank you for just confirming.
Yes.
How long have you lived in Atlantis?
Well, I've lived in this, I moved back to California in 1987. I grew up in Yuba City and then I moved around for a while, but I've lived here since 2006. And we haven't flooded since, so I'm very happy. We have packed up our things.
There's still time.
Anyway, sorry for the long answer, but I've been in this house since 2006.
It was almonds or almonds? Almonds. So I question your bona fides background because you're calling farmer, I know, never call them almonds. I will say, well, first of all, very impressive resume from what I've heard. I mean, certainly this board prides itself on the specific skill sets that each of the board members brings. And I've been on the board for a long time. I know Tom Gilbert's been on the board a way longer time. And I've always appreciated his advice and counsel relative to accounting and finance matters. I think that's really valuable. I think really the board is it's like a team of superheroes. You know, everybody is not good at everything. Everybody's has their skill set that they bring that kind of raises the board together. And so I'm really pleased that someone with your background, especially also not only in a finance and accounting background, but also kind of a diversity of background relative to your ag developmental line. I'm a land use attorney, so I do appreciate the kind of the field of vision that somebody with land development and business background brings to a board like this. I think it's really, really important. And I'm just glad. Thank you for coming here. I don't see anybody else in the public. Have we received any other inquiries of interest? I mean,
Not as before the start of the meeting, no, had not received anything else.
I appreciate your background with the farming community too, because that would have been.
All right. Any questions?
Yep.
Thank you.
Well, Tom, I'd like to hear, I mean, since she is, my words, I suppose, a protege of yours.
Well, I'll confirm everything she said. We worked together all these years, not together exactly, but I think you only worked for me a couple of years, right? 4 years. And then one of my biggest clients, she had spent 25 years with, hired her away, stole her, so to speak. But he remained one of my biggest clients. So I guess the trade-off is good. And again, a lot of overlap in the community. Eva mentioned the Railroad Museum. I was president of that 8 years ago, and we have a committee structure more so than even here. And so we recruit members from the community. And so I recruited Eva because of her background, want to be a at-large member to the audit committee. And that's where she started establishing relationships. And then we were able to recruit her to the board. Now I've been off that board for 2 years. So I'm kind of, I choose my source of information for the Railroad Museum now, which I still keep tabs on. I know her family. She's got 2 boys. They both been in the service, right? So one was, yeah, okay. So, and they're local. Live on one of your properties up.
One is in Pleasant Grove. That's right, South Cedar County, right by the Sacramento, Placer County lines, and Rice Country.
So again, just one of the people that I could go to, and I know that she's got good, clear thoughts and a lot of information, and so I value her opinion very highly.
Yeah, one more thing I want to just acknowledge Tom Mirandis too. Obviously vacated the
this seat. And, you know, talking about the team of superheroes, Tom, we spent a lot of time on this board earlier, and, you know, I talked about how long sort Tom Gilbert, I mean, just on you, obviously, and you brought, you know, your family's been in the basin for multiple generations, and the knowledge and experience that you brought to the board is irreplaceable, frankly, in my mind. And you've seen basin transform from primarily ag district, reclamation district, to a fast growing urban district. So I just want to acknowledge that. I kind of want to hear what you have to say about, you know, the potential of vacating the seat. And yeah.
Um, I have been, well, and me and my family have been on this board for a long time, and seen a lot of changes, and seen where, you know, they weren't sure that they were going to be able to keep going near bankruptcy, you know, and I can remember talking to my father one time, and he talked about a new trustee that they got, Tom Gilbert. Yeah. And he said, you know, he says, I think he's gonna be real good. He's really smart with all the accounting stuff. So,
It's magic.
yeah. So, but you know, a lot of things have changed, and you know, one of the things that when I first started on this board was about outreach, and you know, there were people who said, you know, RD 1000 needs to stay in the weeds. Don't, you know, don't stick your head up, because if you stick your head up, you're going to get fired, you know. And I never believed that. I believed that we had a good story, good history, good management, good employees, and hey, we should be proud of what we do. And this board, along with others, made that happen. And I think the 2018 election was a good indicator that it paid off. It was the right thing to do. And one of the reasons I decided to step down was I think the board is in good hands. I think you've got good management, and we've got a good path. We're secure financially, I think, for the future. We've got a great vision of where we want to go and what we want to do. And, you know, if you got to go out on top. You know, I mean, and, you know, you stick around too long, and pretty soon you're thinking, man, I should have done it last time. So, I personally, I think that, you know, Tom Smith said, I think last month, no one has my breadth of experience. And you're probably right. Okay. Third generation Natomas resident, you know, farmed the entire district of Sutter County, Sacramento County, family been on the board many years, was on the board in Natomas Mutual Water Company, served as the assistant general manager of Natomas Mutual Water Company, assistant general manager of Reclamation District 108. Yeah, you know, hey, I've got a lot of experience. But you know, it's like going to an employer and saying, hey, I want a job. And they say, well, we don't hire unless you have experience. Well, how are you going to get it? you know? And so I think we should give somebody a chance to get some experience. Um, that's the only way, you get new ideas and get, keep the board vi- so I'm certainly, I made my decision not to run, and I will, since we do have a candidate, that's what I would like to do. I'd like to give her a chance. So that's my recommendation.
Tom, I just wanted to say thank you for always being there. You've always provided context. When we decided to move in different directions, you would say, "Oh, no, been there, done that, it doesn't work." And so we wouldn't waste our time. And so I've always appreciated that mentorship you always provided for the board. You're still sniffling. But yes, I just wanted to say thank you for your service, and I've appreciated your honesty and candor and your guidance over the years.
Um, I'm on the fence. I kind of agree with everything that's being said, and I'd like to say it again. There is nobody with your experience and background. And so I'm on the fence about saying I want you to reconsider. But I also believe every now and then we do need some new people. What Nick said about the diversity within the board is just amazing. And I thought of other people I was going to encourage to be candidates, but they were just other engineers. We don't need another engineer on the board. And really, finance is our biggest well, flood protection is our biggest responsibility, but finance to be financially stable. So to have that background, some farming background, I guess I'm willing to say I'd accept your opinion with regret. But the other thing I'd like to add, I would like to know more than what's going to happen to or how do we relate to Natomas Mutual, and maybe that's already in our system as how staff, how are we going to make sure they don't fall by the wayside, because they use a lot of our facilities. We coordinate an awful lot with them. So I think that's something that in the future we need to make sure that connection is still there. So thank you, Thomas, for all those years. Here I'm in my second year, but feeling like home.
Was somebody on your family before your dad?
I need to step in, but I am supportive of
The right.
supporting the recommendation of the Board of Supervisors.
So if you want to make a motion, then your vote's already counted. So
I'll do that.
Okay. Is there
I'll
a
second it.
second by the reader?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I wanted to echo what, Elena and Nick said, Tom, about, the valuable contribution you made to this board. And I know at the last meeting I spoke and had suggested that we, reappoint you to the vacancy, because you did say initially that, you're open to that idea, but, it is nice to hear you, say that, this would be an opportunity to have somebody new come in and, like I said, gain experience. So appreciate that, Tom.
So, got it first, and I've seconded it. All those in favor? Say aye.
Read the motion to me.
It's a motion to recommend Ava Hill to the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors for appointment of trustees.
I'm in favor. Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just asking what, meeting?
So we petitioned the county to appoint the 3 incumbents, the nominated petitions. They confirmed that they were doing that on the 5th. But since we don't have a name, didn't have a name yet to give them, we put up placeholders. So after today's meeting, I'll let them know what the board's decision was. And then I don't know the date. I'll have to wait, but I think it'll probably be I'll have to look at their calendar and see when they put it on. So it doesn't necessarily have to occur in November either. If they push it to December, that may be what they decide to do as well.
And that might work for us because we're pushing our December meeting.
We'll talk
We'll talk
about,
about that later.
yeah,
We can-
yeah.
Okay, well, when we establish the date, can you let me know? I'll be there in person to make
Yes.
sure everybody checks off. Okay.
Got it.
All those opposed? None? The ayes have it. Items approved. On to item 6.2. Okay, Nick is gone, so.
You're welcome. Just real quick, I'll let you know, and then as a mentor, I'm sure contact information. I'll let you know how many, that's on their agenda. Like, person, they do a good idea, but they've got to understand it too. And we'll be in touch once the county confirms that. Because someone else could show up to the county, they know they want, but they would carry our
Recommendations.
So, yeah, I mean, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but you have other things to do. Yeah.
I do have other things to do.
There's plenty of time. So,
Yeah.
All right, thank you guys.
you're welcome.
See you.
Okay, on to 6.2. After last month's board meeting, we had a finance committee meeting to discuss the district's cost allocation plan, because we had some feedback from the development community and the application of the cost allocation plan specifically to indirect costs and the rate we were charging in comparison to other agencies, and mainly with the developers and their experience with other agencies. Our cost allocation plan, which the board adopts on an annual basis in June, effective July 1. This year is about 42% on indirect costs, which would mainly be invoicing from outside engineers or legal. So for instance, Mead and Hunt, they do work on development review. The invoice comes back and then we apply our cost allocation rate of 42%. On top of that, plus we bill for certain staff for direct time and a fully burdened cost. So the development community, aside, in this process, it's been ongoing for about 4 years now. When we first adopted the cost allocation plan, the first indication that there may be some concern about that from the development community came last October from Sutter Point Development, and they started questioning the 42% on the admin invoices. We provided them all the background. We allowed them to continue to do work in lieu of, as long as they pay everything else except that admin fee. We were hoping to come to resolution with them. And then after this year, when we adopted in July and started applying the new rate, we heard from 3 other developers that started saying, wait a minute, something seems off here. So we had the finance committee meeting, we discussed, we had Matrix Consulting, who developed the plan for us, come in and give a presentation. Upon recommendation by the finance committee, because the development project processing agreements are a standalone agreement with its own individual terms and conditions. It's a negotiated contract, it's voluntary. The board can elect to charge whatever it wants to charge. And so after the finance committee meeting, and in fairness to the development community, it was recommended that staff come back with a different methodology for those development project processing agreements for the outside billing invoices. And what we heard from the development community is typically that range from 2 to 5% that they see from other agencies. And so because they are individual contracts, it can be whatever you want it to be. We've been applying the 42% from the cost allocation plan. So staff does feel that it's important not to change the rate in the cost allocation plan because that rate does get applied. We have federal grants or other partnerships, so that rate still is important. It's valid. And so we're not discrediting or undermining the methodology and the validity of that plan. Staff's recommendation is that we go back and amend three contracts that are currently in place with administrative charge on outside of 5%. And so we'll negotiate that with the three. So it'd be an amendment and reference our direct billing rates within the contracts themselves. And then we have two others that are in process that we're working through the terms of the agreement. A lot of on the two that are in process now. A lot of it's like back and forth between legal counsel about indemnity and things like that. But what we'd also do point forward is include our rate sheet for as part of an exhibit in the development project processing agreements. And so it would be attached, the terms and conditions and the roadmap and how we play together is all spelled out in the agreement at the beginning. So we'll handle them on a case-by-case basis. And so staff's asking the board to consider authorizing me to execute the two new funding agreements once we get some other terms and conditions finalized with our cost allocation for direct billing rates, as well as a 5% administration processing charge on outside consultant work. And then for the other three that are listed in the board packet, we would go back and amend the contract with my authorization to provide that amendment and then take care of, I think, a large part of the concern.
What kind of dollars are we talking about? It sounds like we're reducing our administrative billing costs. What kind of dollars are we talking about? $20 or 20,000 or?
It depends on the development project. Some of them are very simple and some of them grow legs and can take a number of revisions and engineer review. The thing is, there is the potential in reducing obviously from 42% to a 5%. But keep in mind, the board is still recovering costs for administrative costs that we never did before. And so each one of them is different. Tom, I don't have a $20 or $20,000 example because it depends. It's very specific to the development and the project. But the district's not out any money, and we won't have to. We're not going to be writing checks back.
That's my question.
Yeah.
How is that going to affect us?
We're still recovering administrative overhead costs by our direct billing, and then also for like the invoice processing. It probably was a little high for adding on top of like meeting kinds of
I'd like a little clarification. So this went through the finance committee, right?
Yes, right.
And I'd like to hear from the chair, his thought.
Who is it?
What's you?
You're not setting a very good example.
So I was gonna clarify this. There's really, in each contract is two rates, right?
Right.
And that's the point is that we're taking the 42% down to 5% for the, what do we call it, indirect?
Yeah, indirect costs, so outside consulting.
Outside consultant. So, Mead and Hunt gives us a bill for $10,000. We add on $4,200 and we would be now, because bill for $10,000, we get 5% with that $500. So, and I don't think we budget for that revenue. So that's the other thing, Tom, is from a revenue standpoint, it's not going to throw us off significantly from our budget. That was like, well, we just didn't budget it. I don't characterize it as anything, but so I think that it's sound financially. And I think one of our things is to support development in the community. And it does seem like that was an onerous assessment in terms of what their costs are. So I was very open to discussing it in this meeting is very well made. And I didn't want to take our 42% down to 5%, but by bifurcating this, it's fair to the developers. So if they want to do it themselves, they just get the, well, I'm not sure what happens.
Yeah, so a lot of times with that is expressed by the developers and what our consultant says, with a lot of agencies that have two rates, typically on a project, they'll decide, and we're talking about larger agencies, we're a little bit of an anomaly, that they either do it all in-house with their own personnel and use their direct billing charge, or everything with that project is done by an outside consultant. Since we do a mix of both, because we don't have an in-house district engineer, we were applying both typically, and we don't have the ability to just like separate it off. So you're a little bit charging double for the administrative cost recovery by doing it applying both, but it's in the agreement, that we would do this. And a lot of time, the cost allocation plan was adopted after a lot of these development project processing agreements were put in place. So it is a new term and condition to them. And so that's why we feel amending the contract is the most appropriate method as opposed to just throwing out the entire cost allocation plan. So each time a development project processing agreement comes to staff, we bring it to the board to authorize execution of that contract because all agreements are approved by the board. So this would be authorizing, go back, amend the, and include our rate sheet. So everything's very clear in that agreement moving forward.
I think it's also a much more transparent relationship at that point, because then it'll be in black and white in the terms and agreements.
So
Make it more work.
the only variable right now that we're talking about is what that rate is, the 1 to 5% range.
I want to go with 5.
Well, I want that discussion. I do too, but
5% does seem really low, and I just did some numbers. A lot of times I'm a subcontractor through a bigger agency, and for them to manage my contract, handle the billings, it's around 20%, which, and I'm thinking that sounds like a gift almost. So 20 seems high to me, 5 is low. But if we want to be friendly to development, that's one of the ways you can do it, by only charging 5%. But that's just kind of I think closer to 20 is more the standard in private industry.
right.
So do we recover in costs? And that's the first question, right? And who has direct costs and who has indirect? Are you give direct costs?
Yeah, so good question, Jag. And so because we have 2 rates, and like I said, so direct billing really covers all of the operations staff. So Gabe's a direct bill. And so part of the cost recovery is already built into the fully burdened full cost rate that Gabe applies. Paul applies it when he does work, and any field staff like Tony or someone else if they're doing an inspection. So that percentage is 102% so of the hourly rate. So full cost is 102%. So we are recovering administrative costs for Jolene and I to support Gabe through that rating. That's why it's a little unusual to charge both in one contract. And so the administrative costs on outside invoices. So really you're talking about high level engineering from Mead and Hunt at $300 an hour or something. And then for us to tack on 42% was well out of alignment with what the developers see, because we are recovering costs through the direct billing. So we want to continue to do that. And then to process the invoices from Mead and Hunt and the pass through is where we put the 5% on those invoices. And so we're not losing any costs. We're actually helping out that bottom line still.
And quick questions are admin stuff. Can we bill on direct as well for process?
So our overhead rate, the way we split positions in the cost allocation plan, I'm part of overhead, Jolene's part of, and Christina, because if you think about it, for an account clerk processing 50 invoices, might spend an hour doing that, and then to cut down how much you spent on one invoice from Mead and Hunt for one developer, it just becomes so small. So that's part of the overhead. Yeah, and then our computing and utility costs and stuff too.
So in general, what I'm saying is we're government, we're not in business of property. We should charge what our costs are, but we also shouldn't pay costs.
Yeah.
If the 1 to 5% puts us in that position, I'll be fine. And if it takes 70% or whatever it takes, right? As long as we're not spending money out of pocket, we help. That's the big.
And I just want to add to Tom's comment, and actually to you also, is that a lot of our costs are fixed costs. That's what Kevin was just describing. 50 invoices, and one of them, you can track the time for that and then bill it. So I think that when you get into the weeds and start talking about fixed versus variable costs, we're really trying to identify the variable costs related to the contract. And I believe that they are very minimal. We've got everything in place. So I think the 5%, I don't want to get away from, there was some discussion about, well, it should be 0, but no, I don't want to get away from that. And that's why I want to make the point is it's also bifurcated so that the ones that where we do have to be more involved will carry that rate. And that's evidenced by payroll records to say, I spent an hour on this, and X amount of. So I think it's really fair to do it this way. And I don't know if we have a motion or not, but in the range of 1 to 5%, I was falling down to 5%. So I don't know.
And the development community said 2. So.
Well, I started out with no, we got them up to 2.
So I think 5% from staff's opinion is reasonable, especially with projects. I mean, it's not going to move the needle for them on meat and hunt invoices. We're still recovering our cost allocation and overhead by the direct billing. And because we are, Gabe and I do have involvement in working with Meat and Hunt to discuss their review as well as developer. We spend a lot of time in development meetings. So the processing of Meat and Hunt's invoices, we're not losing any money there. We're not paying the bill for them. The 5%, and it helps with some cash flow a little bit too. And we have to pay the bill and then we get back to the bill. So
Are we just rolling this back to July 1? Or are we?
I'll tell you what once.
And Brandon?
Oh, one of the things, since each of these agreements is negotiated, if we say or agree that a 5% for outside work is the rate, does that become negotiable in future, or is this something we're setting?
Yeah, so
on an annual basis?
It's a great question, Tom. Because it is a standalone voluntary contract, terms and conditions can change. And so if a developer comes back and they absolutely don't agree to the 5%, we return to the board. It's a negotiated contract. So, but that would be our standard for fairness across the board, would be how we handle the development project processing agreements is we direct bill, fully cost burden. And then for any indirect costs outside consulting invoices, we would put a 5% administrative charge for processing those invoices standalone. And then if we can't come to agreement through the negotiated contract terms, we would return. And ultimately, the developer needs our approval on these things. So the likelihood of them walking away from the table from a 1 or 2% change is unlikely, especially because we're significantly from the other. So,
Tom, Kevin, will that put any pressure on you to how the contracts administrated or structured so that they can?
The only thing that we would want to do is for the ones that are still in process, that we have open agreements, they haven't completed their development and their open agreements, is that we would go back and change the percentage that's been calculated for the administrative overhead rate from the date of the contract start. To change that from 42 to 5%, which doesn't, so not go back and change any closed contracts and write checks or anything like that, because that wasn't our position or policy at the time. But on the contracts that are currently open is just put a credit on there, and a lot of them still have a deposit here. So the district's not like going out and cutting a check. It's just how much we would collect back in the term. So I'll have to work that out with the accounting staff, and that could take some time to get the ones in process just cleared up, especially because there's different financial years and we've closed books. But what we would do for the new ones on the agenda is just clean, it's done, and these are the terms and conditions. There's
I feel like 8% is more the standard of the industry, but I just want to finally say that I respect the work of the finance committee, and if their recommendation is 5%, then I'll vote for that also. One of the things, these developments represent landowners in our district who are currently paying on an annual basis towards maintenance and ongoing funding of the district. So it's not really a private industry kind of situation. They're paying for some of this overhead, and then they're paying again for this overhead. So, I mean, I think we need to be conscious of the fact that they're the ones that keep this district going.
So
Well, that's true. The whole point of the cost allocation plan and recovery plan is the extraordinary work that's done, that's not a service that's provided to the rest of the constituent base. And so that's the whole point of having this, is that work done for others, you're recovering so that it's not subsidized by the rest of the ratepayers. But it's a great point. I mean, they're landowners within the district, so they're already paying, but this is like, the premium subscription service.
right.
HBO Max.
And one of the other points I think we made at the finance committee was in looking at some of the current contracts and how they will be impacted by this rate, and generating those credits. That could be done as an outside expense, that we could bring somebody in so staff isn't.
Yeah, we mentioned that we could do that accounting. We actually have some capability, but like I said, the internal functioning of that, we'll work it out, but some of it could be, direct build time, back to correct. But as an accounting function, we'll figure it out as staff and do it as efficiently as possible. Yeah.
Are system looking for like a 5% motion to say 5%, or to give you the ability to negotiate a range?
That's correct. The latter. My starting point, and if the board can give general direction on the contracts that you're comfortable with 5%, and see what it comes back to.
But
But
if you have to negotiate something different than that, you would bring, it comes
back
back
to
to
the
us
board.
anyway, right?
no, what I'm saying is to authorize me to execute those contracts, negotiate the agreement. But if,
Well, but if,
but Jack, you say 5% or come back, then I would come back.
wait, so I have two things. Are you saying that, it would be 5% in all cases? If they want something different, you can negotiate that and bring it back for approval or not?
Obligation 5%.
You're getting 5%. I'm sorry.
Well, the only thing is one person works is waiting a whole month to execute the agreement. I mean, I don't think we're talking about thousands of dollars.
So,
Okay, well, let's go ahead and open for public comment. Hearing none.
wait a minute, I have a question. I've had a brief discussion with Rob about the audit. Can we get like an audit status update?
Yeah, so
Whoa.
let's close this item out,
Okay.
and then we'll talk about the calendar and schedule, because we need to schedule a finance committee meeting for the audit.
general question is, I was thinking about what Tom was saying, but in the long term, if we go from ag to development, what's the increase in revenue for the district? Of course, we have increased costs to pump that water out, but is that to our advantage, which would then go towards charging a lower, with support charging a lower rate? Because in the long term, we're going to benefit from additional revenue from the development. Is
Yeah,
that an easy question to answer?
It's not, it's very complicated, but we do have a financial model that was developed in 2019, 2020 that looks at those that is, massive assumptions in interest earnings, massive assumptions in development, turnover, and assessed value. So it gets into property values. It's not an easy answer, but we do anticipate the revenue to be, we included 2%
Okay, plus or minus then.
plus.
It would be plus.
I think history would say it's not in the financial best interest of the district to be developed. I think it is simpler when there isn't urban in the district. Just in terms of cost, in terms of maintenance, in terms of liability. And so I think that's what history would say. And the idea with modeling and all that is to identify costs, ongoing costs, so that those developers pay those costs and don't burden the rest of the ratepayers. But that's not science. Well, it's a form of science.
That's important.
Yeah, it's not.
So does the cost, and
Yeah,
that's what.
this
basically
district
comes down to.
was better off when it was 100% agriculture. terms of finance, its liability was severely limited. And its costs were a big power. Power was a big issue. Because again, I'll let your person try you, but in terms of liability, you got empty fields out there versus $100,000, $1 million worth of homes. So that's probably the biggest issue.
I'm gonna have to digest that. I think you're on the same thing.
Well, I mean,
And I
you look at the
appreciate
levy,
you.
you look at the levy project.
I may go back and say, I'm gonna insist you stay.
I can just say, you would never have this levy project if this were unfavorable. You just wouldn't. So.
Okay, so
It's true.
we have a motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize staff to or GM to execute an amendment about projects.
Processing.
Processing.
Yeah.
agreements.
Okay,
Thanks.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed?
Nick was not here, should be noted. He had the conflict.
he recused himself anyway, but I think he does.
The ayes have it. The item is approved.
Thank you.
No closed session.
No closed session, but on to board activity. And so the committee meetings we talked about. I think he left.
No, he's gone. He's gone.
Yeah, I think he left.
He ditched us.
So we, at the executive committee, I understand there's 2 trustees that have another commitment for another board on December 13th, our normal board meeting. So the executive committee tentatively moved to December 20th, and we'd like to do a holiday breakfast before the board meeting, and then conduct the board meeting. But I also understand that there's some other trustees in talking before the meeting that are going to be out of town for the holidays or traveling away and may not be available to attend. So there's no magic to the December 20th meeting. But if we found a date that worked for everyone, we can pick an alternative date. We would just notice it that way. So you're not stuck with a Friday per se.
I believe an idea that was tossed around also was to move it earlier. Is that a possibility, or based on the Board of Supervisors timeline with the appointment in
The biggest trouble with moving it earlier is our financial audit. So it puts a big time crunch in. So Rob's here. We'll talk about that for scheduling a finance committee meeting. It's going smoothly, but moving it earlier in December, I don't think we have enough time to get a finance committee meeting in and finish up the audit. And the board has to receive and file the audit in December so that we can file it with the state in January. So we need a board meeting in December, preferably the 13th or later, would be staff's recommendation. Right? You want to talk about the audit real quick? Well, yeah.
Let's talk about the schedule first. I was
Okay.
gonna say the conversation, because the 20th is the Friday before Christmas, which is great. You know, that works for me, and I don't know about the other board members, but all things considered, I don't want to move it from Friday either, so it's really the 13th that I can't remember who can't make it. This is,
I
Me
think Elena.
Me and Nick, we
Okay,
have
and
another
then-
board.
and so to move it to the 20th is, pardon?
20th, Ed and I are gone.
Oh, I see. So, okay, that's the conflict with the 20th. I want to understand.
Can we do the 19th?
Can we do it Thursday?
I can on Zoom. From wherever I am.
Yeah, just notice it that way.
Can I go with you? We only need the majority here.
Well, there's some hoops you got to jump through to do that remote thing, you know, so I don't just jump in on that too soon.
Oh, he's Zooming.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry about him. He's
Yeah, I
Zooming.
don't know. So the question was about the 19th.
Can we do the
Thursday
19th?
works a bit better for me than
Does that
Thursday.
work for you too? Thursday?
No, but, yeah.
Oh, so that doesn't make any difference between the two of you.
Oh, because you guys are gone. Okay.
I'll make it for
Okay, 19 or
19
20?
or any day before
20.
19 or-
Where are you?
One.
Where are you on the 19th?
Here.
Excited to do the.
Just checking.
I'll send out a scheduling poll for the 19th or 20th Tom, I know neither of those dates work for you, and it's okay.
I don't know, week or few to the morning. Right?
So the sooner the better. I'll send out a scheduling poll. To vote on the 13th through the 20th.
Okay.
Without
Oh, no,
Saturday or Sunday.
13 doesn't
The
work.
13th 's a no. Okay.
The other thing is that this is also, we would just also reschedule our little Christmas luncheon with staff to the same,
The breakfast would be the
same,
Right now
it's a
it'd be-
breakfast. Okay, I thought in the past it's been at noon, but we're talking about.
a couple different things, but
Okay, so that's what we would do, is we do the,
be 8 o'clock for the breakfast and then 9 o'clock for the board meeting.
okay, good, just clarify.
And we're looking at either the 19th or the 20th, 19th or 20th. We'll see where Nick lands.
That's what I need to check.
And I'm still here for the December board meeting.
You are not, but you are invited.
You have to come.
You have to go, yeah, we have to.
Yeah.
The term, Tom, ends in December for the trustee seat. So the vacancy, your term ends, I think it's December 2nd. If we go back and look
But
at
you
the
have-
election code. But we definitely are inviting you as an attendee and hope that you can make that.
Uh-huh. Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Can we talk about the audit real quick, Rob?
Okay.
Just-
Yeah.
That's what the finance committee's for.
What, I did bring it up, I'm saying it. For those of you, I think pretty much everybody, those of you who don't know me, my name's Rob Merritt, I'm the district CPA. I've been working with the district for about 6 or 7 years. So we're in the audit stages now. The audit is, for the most part, done. We're in the review stages and the reporting stages. And the only thing left for you to do is kind of go through the MD&A. Yeah. So the audit was going smoothly. We did get notification that there is going to be one change. It's not really an audit adjustment because Joey and I found it. What happened was in June of 2024, the county deposited about $150,000 into your cash and treasury account. All the documentation said it was a special assessment, so I accounted for it as assessment revenue. Well, a few months later, we get notification that that money belongs to another district. So that's the only change that's going to happen from the previous reporting that we did.
Come get it.
Yeah. So, yes. So what you're going to see in the numbers is a reduction in assessment revenue and a temporary liability on the books saying due to other governance. But other than that, successful audit, no changes. I'm pleased with everything, but we're going now to get the reporting done so we can go to the finance committee toward the end of the month. Is that right? We depending on what we move the meetings, we will have some flexibility on the finance committee.
Yeah, I'll check with it, but you'll be at that one still.
Okay.
So I'll send out a scheduling poll for probably the last week of November. I know Thanksgiving's in there, but we'll pick a date for the finance committee once the audit's complete. And then we'll have the auditor report at the December board meeting, whenever that happens to be. So
You're 18 or 19.
The last compass report I saw for the money in the treasury was September, and that money is still in there. So I'm guessing it's either going to be in October or November where they come and swipe it.
They already pulled it.
Oh, they did? Okay. So that'll be reflected in my next treasurer's report when I see that.
You just have to give back the interest.
the client part out loud. All right, that's all we have. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion in a second. I will see you guys next month.
Thank you, everyone.